we ended up doing was a lot of triangle work. Early with, we started with the parallel lines, and then we went to the angle relationships, went right into proving triangles congruent, and then now, again, a lot of the kids had a lot of background knowledge on the interior angles of a triangle equaling 180, but they didn't know why. So this was kind of building on all their prior knowledge from elementary school, anything in math so far, building what we learned in geometry, and then now formally proving why the angles add up to 180. This is a great lesson to start off with. It's the start of a new unit. We just finished our triangle proof unit. It really lends itself, to building on their prior knowledge and the building blocks. So we've kind of gone from outside triangles, angle relationships, proving triangles, all the different pieces of the triangle congruent, and now what we're doing is we're going to the inside of the triangle and using, the interior angles, the bisectors, the, altitudes, all the different pieces of the inside of the triangle, and start to apply the algebra properties to those.
Great. Is this text used in the lesson part of a sequence of text designed to build skills and knowledge? If so, give an example of other texts that form this sequence.
Seeing that one, the tech, like...
This one, it's more for the...
That's ELA, yeah, sorry.
So, I want to find your questions. Let me pause this for a minute.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, that one is the coherence piece. It was how it strings the year together. So far, it really lends itself well from parallel lines to congruence and the transformations that we used, all the way to being able to apply what they have in their toolbox. All of the theorems, postulates, everything that they've been able to use, apply it algebraically, use some of the logic that we've built on, and really just just bring that to the forefront during a class period. And that was, in a one period class, that was the best that we could do. It was real succinct and very specific. The shifts, the rigor that the kids, before would be, give them, take the notes, let's look at an example, and let's do a couple of the application problems, where today they had to derive and prove the actual theorem instead of just been, I don't want to say spoon-fed the information, but they had to apply what they knew from before and use it in the context of formal proof. So the rigor is there, and that's something that in years past hasn't been. So that was great to see it in action today. The kids really respond well to kind of the rigor that's changed from year to year. This has been the kids really, that's the big focus. The biggest thing is the level of engagement and collaboration. The collaboration piece was, if it was there, it was sometimes forced. And on self-reflecting, I wasn't patient enough. I'd want to jump in. It was tough. It's been really a tough transition not to want to help, want to jump in and just give them, what if you give them more of an opportunity to figure it out themselves. So that's been the biggest challenge for me, because before it was here's the theorem, here's some examples, let's look at our notes, let's talk about it, and then let's just do the problems. Whereas today that's not the case anymore. It's how do we take it and talk about it, and not just look at one other person's viewpoint, but look at three other people, and given time when we close the activity, it'll be a whole class, and look at the different perspectives in the class. Whereas before we never had time for that because we had to cover so much. Now there's a little less to cover, so we can go more in depth in the topics, and that's the big one. That's really why I've enjoyed the shift. I have some really great students. They're bright, they're academically talented, so this lesson went like a lot of the lessons we do. They are eager to learn, they want more. Sometimes what we do in a class period is not even enough. They go outside on their own and they want to learn. So tackling a lesson like this was not only finding what we're going to do in the classroom, but then finding some stuff at home that would challenge them or build on what we did in the class. So the videos we posted on the blog, that is just an addition to, not a supplement or anything else. They'll actually go home and do that, and that's why these students are great, and that's really helped focus the lesson and the planning part to it. The understanding part of the mathematics we'll really find out tomorrow. One of the things in the planning was it took a little bit longer, and I didn't want to just stop because they were having such rich conversations. I couldn't just say, all right, finish it for homework, or let's try to fit it into a 46-minute class period when they were having, the learning was longer than 46 minutes. So we'll assess tomorrow. There'll be some conversations that we'll do. We'll do maybe different group members. We'll kind of break up their pods and make them reform with 3 other members and see if there's a different perspective. And then we'll formally assess with probably like a 4 questions to see how we can apply our knowledge and see, do we need to reteach, or can we just go forward and try to go into the next part of the unit. The differentiation came from the movements, visual, kinesthetic, the collaboration piece. So there was a lot within that little lesson that we did that offered a little something for everybody, whether it was getting up to the board, whether it was getting up and playing the rock, paper, scissors math, whether it was doing the finger exercises. It was a hook that at least we got them a couple different places to keep them engaged. And the differentiation piece was, again, it's just the different routes in which we took to get there. It wasn't necessarily, nothing needed to be modified for these students. They're academically talented. So there wasn't much in the way of differentiation there, but it was the way the delivery method was. Again, just trying to capture their engagement. That was pretty much the differentiation for that lesson. Some of the wording that we try to use in class is not as general. We try not to speak in generalities anymore. It needs to be specific. So we were working on an algebraic geometric proof. So some of the things that they needed to talk about were the alternate interior angles. They needed to talk about parallel lines cut by transversals. They couldn't just say those 2 angles are congruent, where they might have been able to say that before. We needed to know the specifics of why they were there. The ways that we've gone about trying to build those vocabulary and those skills has been, really beefing up the reading part of math. That math, we've talked, or some people have said that math is the new language, and the Common Core piece is really helping the kids, speak and think mathematically. That's been a huge shift because, again, they've never been asked, why. They can do, why those 2 angles were, they're both, congruent. And now we're asking them to go that step farther and be like, okay, more precise. Why? Can you show? Can you prove? That wasn't happening before. So that's been a huge shift, and that's a big part of Core Action 3 of why what we've seen in that lesson and I've seen throughout the year. Nothing was collected as of yet. We'll look at real closely tomorrow, but being able to get around the room because they're working in groups was great because I got to see the different ways that the partnerships worked. Some did it visually, some wrote the 2-column proof, some did it algebraically. The algebra piece was the big one that was great, that I liked to see because it really showed that transfer from what they learned last year to this year, and that long kind of life learning piece to it. As far as the formal piece to it, it was great to see the kids, take that step from the last unit to this unit. And the kids that were the visual piece, it was really neat to see how they could show a different way, and it really just opened everybody's eyes. Like once we put it on the board, it really opened all their eyes to say, now we see what it means. So it was great to see those 3 different ways. So that's, even though I haven't collected it, that was real evident from walking around the room. The big piece that, a couple of things that I thought went well, the student engagement piece was right there from the get-go. It was nice to see them participate in the goofy things that we do, with the finger calisthenics, to the point where they were, the engagement with the problems with the actual math, that was that was great, but it took a hook to get them to get to that point. So it was great to see them dive into the math and to show the perseverance, the piece that, it was a harder problem for some, but none of them kind of quit. They kept going and going and going. That was a huge success to pull out of it. Another piece was, again, being able to multitask, so not just get stuck on one task and not be able to transition to another. They were able to do that seamlessly and take some of the little pieces from the intro, from the opener, and then pull it together for that final piece, even though we kind of ran out of time, they were able to pull those three things together and make, see the connection between them, and that was pretty big. The other thing where I would improve upon was the timing of everything. I would allow for more time for the discussions. There seemed to be some really great discussions going on, and again, being the first time through the Common Core with geometry, that would be something that next year I'm putting in the notes to say, give them a little bit more time. No part during the lesson did any of them seem to be off task, and if it wasn't for more than a split second. There were times where a partnership wasn't working so well together. That kind of surprised me because we've kind of been really building that collaboration piece. So in that, I saw that, I tried to intervene, but not step into the point where it was, forceful or it looked, made up. It was something that I hope that would occur naturally within the class and not is something that's not forced. But sometimes even kids want to they go on their own path of solving a problem, and that was evident a couple times, and that was one of the unintended kind of results that we had today. Yeah, that's a great thing about it because there was no given information, there was no one way to do it. And that's what I love to see. I like to see the multiple ways to represent that problem because there is no one answer. And that, a couple people said, do we need to do a proof? And I just shrugged my shoulders and just kind of walked away and let them figure it out. And that's a big part of their learning because before we would have just said, use a proof, do it algebraically, or how would you show this visually? Now all three were just incorporated naturally from the different partnerships of the different groups. It wasn't forced on them, so that was really great.